Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today in this live session as part of Curious About, hosted by Glasgow Science Centre. My name is Amy. It's lovely to virtually meet everyone who is watching today. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Francesca Perotti, who works for the European Marine Energy Centre, or EMEC, as a Stakeholder Engagement Officer. So Francesca works with lots of different groups working to support a move towards renewable energy. Today, Francesca will be talking to us about testing marine energy devices, green hydrogen, communities, and policy. Now, as we go through the session, if we have anyone who's watching on YouTube, please get your questions submitted using the chat box and we'll try to get through as many as possible today. So welcome, Francesca, and thank you for joining us for this session. I'll hand over to you to get us started. So please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello and thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to speak about the exciting things I do at EMEC. But first, before I speak about the work I do, let's review the biggest motivator for everything, climate change, even though I'm pretty sure most of you already know what that is. Well, climate change. It is a big deal. It's one of the biggest challenges of the 21st century, and it refers to the process of the planet heating up, which will have huge impacts on people and wildlife across the world. Humans burn fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas to generate the electricity that we need for our daily living. And when we burn these fuels, we're actually releasing something in the atmosphere called greenhouse gases. And these gases stay in the atmosphere and hang around and trap the sun and the heat from the sun, just like a glass panel in a greenhouse. And so over time, this results in global warming. One solution is trying to avoid to use fossil fuels. And at EMEC, we're looking at trying to do that by using different forms of energy, renewable energy. So we call this the energy transition or the clean energy transition. Some forms of renewable energy have been around for a while and are already established. For example, we have windmills that have become wind turbines. And then we have hydropower and hydro dams and solar panels. These have been around for a while. But at EMEC, the place where I work, we don't look at forms of technologies and energy that are already established. EMEC stands for European Marine Energy Centre. You can see that in the logo. And it's in the name, really. We work with marine energy. We are a test center for marine energy technologies. And with this marine energy, we also produce green hydrogen. These are new technologies and new forms of energy. They are still under development, and they require a lot of research, testing, and demonstration to be safely deployed. At EMEC, we have three main test sites. One is the tidal test site, which you can see in the top picture. We also have a hydrogen production plant in the bottom picture, and a wave test site, which you can see in my background. EMEC could not exist without its place, Orkney. Orkney, where I live, even though I'm Italian, is an archipelago off the north coast of Scotland, as you can see in the mini map of the UK that I put there. Orkney is remote, it's rural, it has its own culture and history, and it has great renewable energy sources, waves, winds, tides. It's only natural that EMEC is based here. Not only Orkney is gifted with these renewable energy sources, but also with local expertise for sectors related to the sea historically, like fishing, oil and gas production, and the ship industry. This is very helpful in the development of the marine energy sector. Here we have some examples of the machines that EMEC is testing or that we have tested. The top ones are machines for tidal energy, and the bottom ones for wave energy. They're all connected or have been connected to the grid and have generated electricity. And I also mentioned we have a test site for green hydrogen. We call it green hydrogen because it is produced with tidal energy machines, the ones you have seen before. How do we do that? We have an electrolyzer on site, and the electrolyzer splits the water molecule, H2O, into H2, hydrogen, and O, oxygen. And at EMEC, we also research how to use this hydrogen for different purposes. For example, supporting the heating of the airport in Kirkwall in Orkney. You can also see in that picture that there's a clear cloud. Well, that is just water vapor. When you burn hydrogen, you don't release toxic exhaust fumes. You actually just release water vapor. And then we're also looking at how to use hydrogen for refueling station and for fuel for ferries and fuel for planes. In this energy transition, every skill set is welcome. At EMEC, we have people from all backgrounds. We have technical people. They are, for example, engineers, environmental scientists, and technicians. But we also have non-technical people, and these people work with people by building relationships. How does cultivating relationships connect to saving the planet? It is simple. Cultivating relationships is important because all people in society need to be on board with the energy transition. And when we speak about the energy transition, we also speak about a just transition. This means that the energy transition needs to be just and fair for everyone. Nobody should be left behind. Now you can see here how different people at EMEC are cultivating and fostering relationships. For example, with project partners, or monitoring the impact of our marine energy machines on marine life, or with the media, or also with the local supply chain. If you see in the bottom left, that big structure, well, that is from a company in Orkney, and it's submerging a Microsoft subsea data center. That's right. But the work I do as a stakeholder engagement officer involves speaking with local communities. For example, in Orkney, we have the Orkney Science Festival in September, and I invite everyone to go and check it out. We had organized a family day last year where all families were welcome and we had lots of activities. We also gave talks to the public to raise awareness about what we do, but also listen to their questions. We hold open days quite regularly of our sites, because usually our sites are not open to the public, but we want to show people what we're doing. And we also go to careers fairs to speak to young people about job opportunities in the sector and the EMEC. Part of ensuring a just energy transition is to keep people informed and give them the ability to talk about their concerns and ask questions. Change can be scary, and for some, the energy transition will have a bigger impact than for others. This will involve changing their people's ways of living. So we need to make sure that these changes are fair for everyone and for the Orkney people as well, for example. That is why my job is important. Another part of my job is communicating with policymakers and people working in the civil service. You can see here 2 policy papers that have recently been published, one by the UK government and one by the Scottish government. Now, in this situation, I am something like the external voice of EMEC. Basically, the policymakers want to consult stakeholders like EMEC, who are experts in their sectors, and want to hear their opinion about a certain topic related to climate change. So I have to gather the information across the whole company at EMEC, and I have to basically write what EMEC has learned from our work as a research report, sort of, and then send it to the policymakers and civil servants. Now, this is very important because if policymakers hear what experts in the sector, like EMEC, think about certain topics, when they have to make decisions about policy, they will reflect and make them the most appropriate way. And also, we engage with politicians in person. These are my bosses, and they have both met politicians and shook their hands. We show them around our sites, our machines, and speak to them about the potential of marine energy and green hydrogen. Now, again, this is very important because not every politician or civil servant is aware about what's happening up north in Orkney. I want to conclude by repeating that it is extremely important that we combat climate change because its harmful effects will have huge consequences on our planet. And Scotland has pledged to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2045. And we have a long way to go. But it is important that we reach net zero in a just way. And so I've tried to show you that EMEC is a piece of the puzzle in the clean energy transition and in this fight. Learning from people, having a dialogue with them and listening to their questions is as essential as having machines working, which is the reason why EMEC has jobs like mine. And you can have the best machines in the world, but without people communicating and making it happen, they cannot work. So a just transition is an energy transition that is clean and fair and involves people and relationships at every step. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Francesca, for sharing that with us. I've actually already thought of some questions myself. But remember, if you're watching on YouTube, you can add questions to the YouTube chat box and we'll get through as many as we can in the next 15 minutes or so. And I think we have our very first question coming up that we can ask Francesca, which is, are there any downsides to the energy transition? I think that's quite a big question to start you off, Francesca. Are there any downsides?
Indeed. Yes. So some people, as I said, will be impacted by the energy transition more than others. So yes, there are downsides. For example, some people will lose their jobs. I'm speaking about, in particular, people in the oil and gas sector. Other people will have to change their careers, and this will have consequences on their lives. For example, some people will lose their jobs. I'm speaking about, in particular, people in the oil and gas sector. Other people will have to change their careers, and this will have consequences on their lives. their ways of living. For example, how they cook or how they travel, because of the renewable energy technologies and the clean energy transition. So if in fighting climate change, we keep in mind that we need to pay attention to people's well-being and fairness, then we can reach net zero in a more just way. And if there are any negative impacts, because some people will have to compromise and make sacrifices, then we can balance them out in other ways.
Thank you so much for answering that, and putting it so simply. I imagine it's quite a big issue, but that was really, really nicely explained. Thank you. We've got our next question. How many people work for EMEC? And do a lot of people on Orkney work for EMEC?
Yes, so we have, if I remember, 79 people work for EMEC. We've grown quite a lot in the last few years. We were only 40 a couple of years ago, and 67 live in Orkney. So the majority of us lives here and is part of the Orkney community as well.
Yeah, Orkney, I've never visited, but it seems like an amazing place. How long have you actually lived on Orkney?
I've lived on Orkney about 13 months.
Oh.
And it is really amazing. Lots of things going on in this small place. So I highly recommend it for everyone.
Nice. Visit Orkney is the message I'm getting.
Yes, possibly in the summer.
Yeah, good plan.
Yeah.
Nice. We'll get our next question, which is, we've got a YouTube question from Margaret Johnston, who wants to know, great question, Margaret. How is the hydrogen stored?
Yes, so we have cylinders where the hydrogen is stored, and they have to have a certain pressure inside for the hydrogen to be stored. And these cylinders are then put in some sort of like trucks, lorries, and they are transported everywhere. So we had projects that involved smaller islands and the heating of a school, if I'm not mistaken. And how did we transport hydrogen to there? Well, through these lorries that had these high pressure cylinders on them.
Great question. That's someone's really thinking about how that works. Excellent question. Fantastic. Thanks for sending that one in. We'll get our next question up onto the screen, which is, now I was actually thinking about this as you were talking, Francesca. What sort of wildlife are in the area, and are they disturbed at all by the marine energy devices?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. So in Orkney, we have lots of different marine life. And if you're a diver, it's a special place to go to. We have, if we think about the main groups, we have cetaceans, so dolphins, whales, and porpoises. We have seals, seabirds, and fish. And so we have jobs for monitoring the impact of the marine devices on the wildlife. And our research suggests that the risk of collision and entanglement of animals is very low, and so is the underwater noise. However, it's really difficult to research and monitor for three main reasons. One is the extreme sea conditions that we have here in Orkney. The other one is that some species are very elusive and do not show themselves very much. So it's difficult to compare, to have a before and after to compare. And also, there are different disturbances like underwater noise, collision, entanglement. And these, as I said, are new technologies. So we don't have enough data yet. We still are learning about their impacts. So we're still at the beginning of the journey, in a sense.
Really interesting, and I imagine a very, very important thing for EMEC, since you
Absolutely.
are on Orkney.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
yeah, great question. We'll have our next one, which is, it's a little bit about you. Did you always imagine that you would work in the energy industry?
No, I wouldn't say that. When I was about, I think, 8 years old, I wanted to study history and become an archaeologist. And then, well, I'm also Italian, so for us, history is very important, and we study a lot of it, especially ancient history. And then, well, when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to help people in a way. And after that, I went traveling for a while, and I found out how important the environment is. And I was really interested in the connection between the environment and people. And so I enrolled in geography in school, which is a great subject. I recommend everyone to do it. And then I just found out about the energy sector in university. And it really interests me because of its intricacies and complexities, because it involves lots of different things, human behaviors, cultures, the planning of our cities, technology, people. So it really is complex, and that's why it's so interesting.
Fantastic. It sounds like you really followed your passions and what interested you, which is great.
Yeah, that's
Fantastic.
true.
Great. We'll have our next question. What are your hopes for the future of the energy
Hope.
industry?
Yeah, I may have sounded a little bit negative at the beginning of my presentation about climate change. But yes, no, I have two main hopes. One is, well, with the clean energy transition, I also hope that people will benefit from it in a just way. And so that also means no fuel poverty across the world. There are lots of people across the world, and even in the UK, who actually cannot afford to pay for their bills, electricity bills, whether it's for heating or for air conditioning or for cooking. So that is my biggest hope, that there is no more fuel poverty. And that then also I have another hope, which is I would hope that governments of the world, especially Western governments, Western countries, actually look and learn from small communities like Orkney, and take action before the clock, before climate change becomes irreversible. Because what makes it happen in Orkney is the culture of care for each other, this culture of relationships for each other that we have. So yeah, I really hope that they reflect on that and they move fast.
Fantastic. I think caring for each other is a great way to put it and a great way to think about it, and something we should all be thinking about. Thank you so much, Francesca. We've got one more question that we're going to ask you before we wrap up today. So the question is, what advice would you give to anyone watching today, figuring out what work they might want to do in the future?
Yes. I would, first of all, I would say enroll in subjects that and you don't like, even those, because maybe you have just misjudged them and you actually find out that you do like them. And then I would also say try to learn from many different sources, knowledgeable people on different media sources, and if you can, travel, because as I mentioned, that was eye-opening for me. If not, try to learn about different countries on the internet, and also listen to older generations and their stories, because that connection with the past is really important for what we want to do in the future. So yes, I recommend that you do listen to these stories and then take action when you can, based on what we have learned from the past.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Francesca, for joining us today and sharing your knowledge and your thoughts. It's been great to have a chat and hear all about your
Thank
work
you.
as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I think Francesca was about to say thank you very much to our audience, which is what I would like to say as well. Thank you to everyone who's watching today. And we had a question from YouTube. That was great to get that question in. Thank you. Now, if you would like to find out more about the European Marine Energy Centre and the work they do, you can head to www.emec.org.uk. So that is emec.org.uk. And of course, for more content from ourselves at Glasgow Science Centre, you can visit the Curious About website at curiousabout.glasgowsciencecentre.org. So if you head there, you'll find lots more interesting content like games, activities, plus all of the live events are being recorded and will be available to play back later from the website too. The last thing from me is I would like to say that we want to hear from you what you thought of our live session today. So a link to a brief survey is coming up in the YouTube chat box. If you're on YouTube, if you could fill that out and let us know, we would really appreciate that. But for just now, it's bye from myself and Francesca. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time. Bye.